Hi friends, it's Granny J Clay today again, and I had a couple of requests, and one was for the 2 bead that I have laying in front of me. And I wanted just to point out a couple of things with this, and maybe I'll use the bigger one so I can show you. And I have gloves on today because I'm going to work with a sheet of white, but I think I used pearl as my background color in here, and then I just added some other clays, probably some scrap clays. Pretty sure that's what I did. There's black, there's white, there's pearl, there's gold, there's red. There's even a little bit of blue and some purple right here. So I just wanted to mention that I'm going to use a texture sheet as well. And as you can see, there is a texture on this. And when I was done, and this was baked and it came out of the oven, then what I did was I put acrylic black paint on it so it would go down into the crevices of the texture, and then I wiped it off to get most of it off, and then as you can see it stayed in the texture grooves. I also did something else for the ends. I put a little bit of black acrylic paint in a little tiny cap, so it was at the same level. And once these were baked and cooled and came out of the oven, or baked and cooled, then I just took the end and I just dipped it in the acrylic paint. And then I took this end and dipped it in the acrylic paint. To the depth of how full that cap was, that made it look like it had an end on it. And I didn't have to really put an end on it. If you go on the internet and on YouTube and you see any other videos, you'll notice that people can attach ends or do attach ends with clay. But this really is an easy way. And I'm pretty sure I found that idea on YouTube somewhere, but I can't tell you where. So anyway, let me just show you real quickly, because this is going to be a quick video. But you can see the other ones down here have been dipped. The ends have been dipped too. And there's just several different kinds. And just depending on what kind of clay I used, that's the color that came out with these. So let me push those aside a little bit. I already rolled out my piece of white that I'm going to use for this. And this is the stick that I'm going to roll it around. It's kind of a little dowel. It's not very big at all. But depending on how wide you want the hole in your bead, maybe you could use a pencil to wrap it around. But let me just show you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take this particular texture. It's a sponge-like texture. I ordered this with these. Let me just show you these quickly. Those three came together. So this is the coarsest, and then this is very little texture. But I like this one a lot. I use that one quite a bit too. But on this particular one, maybe you can tell because the grooves were pretty deep, that I used this one. So let me show you what I did. It's really pretty easy. All I'm going to do is I just took a sheet of clay, doesn't matter how, depending, I guess, on how big you want the 2 bead. What I could probably do, though, is shave off a little bit on each side so it didn't have a jagged end. And I didn't measure it because this is simply to show you what I did. So again, you can use any clay you want, any bits of clay, any kind of clay, to make your own tubes. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to first begin. This is rolled out, this is white Premo rolled out on a 0 on my Atlas 180. And I have some fun news to share. I ordered a motor to attach to my Atlas 180, and it's supposed to arrive tomorrow. I'm excited. That'll help save me a lot of cranking, but in the meantime, I'll crank away. And I apologize for the lamp, but I wanted to have it as bright as I possibly could. Hopefully you can see this well enough. So what I do is I just take it and make sure it's not real sticky down here. In fact, you could put a piece of parchment paper under here or wax paper too. That would work fine. And then all I'm going to do is take it very carefully. Oh, let me get into view here. I lay this down and I'm going to just take it and bring the end up very carefully and just roll it a little bit. Roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it until I get it that far. And when I've got it that far, what I'm going to do is kind of push on it so it makes a mark. Hopefully it will make a mark. Let's see if it did. Yes, it did. I don't know if you can see that, but where it made the mark is where I'm going to cut. Okay. Okay. I'm going to come over and come over and come over. And as you can see, it did not seal completely. And we're going to do something with the ends too. They're uneven at this point, but that's all right. So what I want you to do is just go ahead and push this down. And you're going to see why it's not that big of a deal to, oh, you know what? Yeah, there we go. Just want to make sure it was sliding for me. Okay, yes, because sometimes it can get stuck. So you might want to just take care of the hold of the whole thing and then move this back and forth a little bit. Now, very carefully, what you want to do is take your, take your texture sponge or whatever you're using for a texture. You can do this prior to putting it on the stick, but what I recall when I made those, it was easier after I put it on the stick if you don't press too hard, that is. So let me see what happens here. So what I want to do is just take this and I'm going to pinch it into the clay. Pinch, pinch, pinch away. And see what I get. And then just back it off. And voila. Do you see? It made a texture. I'm going to hold on to it again and I'm going to just take the stick and move it. Okay, now as you can see that there is a seam showing. Very easy to take care of. All you do is very carefully go back and just tap over it with your texture sheet. Like that. And if you make it with different colored clay, you're not even going to see it actually. And once you start to texture it with your sheet, like we just did, and I'm going to do it again just a little bit, you'll hardly be able to see that at all. Okay, then I'm going to take it and I'm going to lightly, you just grab it lightly, and then move this back and forth. Maybe I can do it this way. Back and forth, so it's, you know, it's going to come off easily. And then what I do is I have a little tiny razor blade thing, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it right here, and I'm going to turn the stick a little bit so I can get a nice clean edge cut on it. And sometimes this is hard to do. You don't get, you might not get it real even sometimes. All right, let me see if I can pull that off of there. Okay. As you can see, it's still stuck right there. And I'm going to get that off. I'm going to take it off the other end. There we go. So it's got a pretty nice end on it now, as you can kind of see there. Okay. And then I'm going to turn it and I'm going to do the other end. And generally, all you have to do is just put the little razor blade on here and roll. And just remove that part. See, it's still stuck right there. Maybe you can do this better than I can. There we go. So now we have another end, and it's cut really well. Now remember, you can mix any clay in here. You can get any color bead you want. And now I'm going to look at my bead and see where I might need to texture it again. And as I see right here on the end, I need to texture it just a little bit more. See, there we go. And then I'm just going to walk it down the bead a little bit again, making sure I go over the seam again. Okay. And then I'm going to take it very lightly in my hand, and I'm going to take it off. And so there you have a tube bead. And before you dip it in paint, you may just take a little fingernail file and file the, if there's any little rough edge off. It depends on how it looks when you're done with it. But now, if I wanted to bake it and I didn't want it to be straight just like that, what I would do is I would put it on my, let's just pick one of these old cards I just used. I would put it on my card, and what I would do is, let's see, what would I take it around? You can shape it with your own fingers, actually. I was going to take it around a little, my roller, but this is fine too. Do you see it? You just shape it with your fingers like that, wherever you want it to be. And then I kind of press it a little bit, making sure I've got all the texture still in there. And I keep it on the card, and that's how I will bake it. Let's see, I know I twisted one. This one, is it this one? It was off just a little bit. It seemed to be off a little bit. In other words, the dip was offset to the side a little bit. But most of them turned out okay. So you can see a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, a little bit of the seam there, but you know, it really doesn't matter. There's so many colors going on within the bead that, yeah, I can tell. And there's another seam that you can see, but you know, depending on where the seam is and where it's going to lay when you have it on your chest, it won't be anything that you have to really worry about. But I use all kinds of clay in those. So that is my 2 beads.